Trust in Messiah. Welcome to the Confederacy of Dunks
Basketball Podcast.
I am your host, Freddie Rivas. And who, sir, with a very nice background and Raptors hat are you?
I'm your producer, Matt Duncan. Freddie, how have you been this last week?
I have been doing pretty good, hanging in
Yeah.
there. Doing my Family Feud warm up. I'm sure you can hear it in my voice. It's pretty strained. I've been yelling a lot. So, having a good time, making people laugh.
That's good, man.
Yeah, how you doing?
I'm well. I'm, just took the week off last week. So, we don't take vacations very much, but, I'm feeling a little re-energized, ready to go, I guess,
I love it. Well, if you're just tuning into this podcast for the first time or you're coming back, we are hardcore Raptors fans. We have comedians, analysts, actors. Basically, if you're a Raptors nut and or an NBA nut, you are welcome on this pod and you're in the right place. We're with Raptors Republic. And, if people want to help us out, make us the greatest podcast on earth, how can they do that, Maddie?
Well, go to raptorsrepublic.com. That, yes, as Freddie said, that is where the podcast is. And you can subscribe on all the podcatchers if you want to listen to the full episodes. If you are on YouTube watching the segments we put up there, please subscribe. Please rate. Please comment. We love all that good stuff. And yeah, just go to dunkspodcast.com. That's our own personal site. You can listen and watch there as well.
Beautiful. Well, I think right before I introduce the guests here, I will say, as I've been saying, free Brittany Griner. Me and my podcast buddy, Catherine Niker, we do a WNBA pod called WNBA, the Pickup Podcast on the Sonar Network. We've been covering that for a long time. Also, make sure you tune into the WNBA Finals. It's 2-0 Aces right now, but it's been an incredible playoff so far. And I honestly feel sorry for anyone who's not watching the WNBA playoffs because it's fantastic. But with that said, we got some Raptor stuff to talk about, some NBA stuff to talk about. Yeah, let's start with you, Imman. Just sort of blanket Raptors question here, pretty open-ended, I guess. But training camps in 12 days, I think.
Crazy.
Pretty sure I have that right. I know it kind of snuck up on me with all the Durant summer stuff, but what's your biggest question kind of heading into training camp and then obviously preseason?
So honestly, I'm higher on the Raptors than most people. I want to say, like, I'm pretty high on this team. I think the number one question that we can ask is about their half-court offense, right? Like, if there's going to be something that we focus in specifically, it's going to be their half-court offense. But even before I get to that, the Raptors are the weirdest team in the NBA. I mean, the Cavs are pretty weird. They're just guards. They're just bigs. But the Raptors are also built incredibly odd. And the reason for that is they're going to constantly exploit mismatches. That is what they're going to do. That's a lot of what their offense is going to be, including in the half-court. It's about exploiting your mismatches there, which also means there's going to be a mismatch on the other end. And quite often that's going to be a big and a lack of the big that the Raptors have. They're a big team and they're going to bully teams, but they don't have a big, which makes them so weirdly built. But I think that would sort of be the number one question. Precious Achiuwa is kind of the answer to that question, right? Like what he can become. So when I look at this team, as opposed to like a team-wide question, I would sort of focus in on those two as my team-wide questions. I have questions for individual Raptors. What does Precious look like the Precious of the second half? That includes a three-point shot, but that also includes what he was able to do at times against a guy like Joel Embiid. You're not going to go up against him every single night, but he needs to hold his own against the bigs there. So I think those are sort of the two biggest questions that I have for this Raptors team heading into the year.
Yeah, great points. I've been thinking about the Raptors half-court offense really, ever since Kyle Lowry was sort of like on his way out, because I think he did so much managing of the half-court offense. And when he left, there's sort of like this, like, I'm curious what Nurse's sort of like imprint on the team, like what our pet plays are going to be. And I think you brought up a good point about the mismatch going both ways, because it's like, you in transition, it's like, okay, anyone can post up. Let's just like pitch it ahead sort of thing. But at the end of the day, teams are going to be able to set their defense. I don't want to say more often than not, but like certainly in the playoffs. And I think that's what you got to prepare for. So is it like this team offensive rebounding thing? Like what's the game? Like what's the end game? Like, are we still in like the middle game here? I think, I'm curious how high you are on the Raptors, because I feel like I'm in that camp of, dangerously high. I have them sort of like finishing third in the East, which a lot of people, I know. I'll say that to people and they'll kind of like laugh me, I don't know, out of whatever room I'm in. And the thing is, my caveat is I don't think that necessarily applies to the playoffs. I think the playoffs are sort of a different game, but I do feel like we have weird depth, and we've kind of been doubling and tripling down on it with, even like Otto Porter's are like a good offensive rebounder for his size. So I think we're going to just be this weird curveball for a lot of teams in the regular season.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a lot of guys that could develop. So it should be pretty interesting. And last thing I'll kind of jump on, and I kind of want to throw it back to you, Imman. Like, as far as Precious goes, do you see, like, are your questions mostly about him being like, is that the shooter he is, or is it that kind of like, is he that special on defense? Because I think he showed moments where it was like, oh my God, he's guarding Embiid, then he's switching to Harden. And it's kind of like, oh wait, we saw that at the end of the season, but are we going to have that the whole season, like against every team?
It's a little bit of both. I am higher on Precious Achiuwa than I am on any other human being that's ever played basketball ever. I say this, it's so bad. I say this every time I get in front of a microphone. I would say this all the time. He reminds me of my niece, who was 2 all of last year. Now she's 3, because every time I saw her again, I'm like, you know how to do that? Like, you know how to say those words? You know how to walk? Like, every time I saw her, she'd like develop more into a human being. And I feel like every time I watch Precious Achiuwa, it'd be every single game, right? Because like toddlers grow daily. He would become a different player. And it's like, okay, that, like, his trajectory from the beginning of the season, where people were calling him a 0-level scorer, people were saying he was the worst offensive player they ever saw, to him being a 40% three-point shooter changes everything with like Vision 6-9, right? Like, if he's able to do that, what that opens up for the team offensively. But I honestly am focusing more so defensively, because if he can be your nominal 5, that changes a lot of things for you as well, because you can run with this lineup. If we come against, a Joel Embiid or a Nikola Jokic in the finals, but like, if you come against these centers again moving forward and you just get bullied, you just get demolished, and you realize this team can't be built this way, it's probably because Precious doesn't have those high highs. Like, he could still be a really good player, but what you need from Precious is something special and something extraordinary, and he showed us glimpses of that last season. And like, there's reason to believe he can replicate that, but it is also asking a lot. So I'm really interested in what Precious Achiuwa looks like as your 5. I don't think the Raptors are going to start with him at the 5. I think their starting 5 is going to be what we saw for most of last year. But I think the numbers sort of bear out that the team looked better when they had a center playing, whether that be Precious. And Kem was hurt for tons of last year, so it was really unfair to look at his numbers, but the team still looked better, especially those offensive rebounding numbers. Kem has like some magnets on his fingers in his ability to get those, but having that person really does open up things for the Raptors in terms of offense and defense. And if Precious can be that guy, this team is special. And if he can't, it's because we're asking the world of him. So who knows?
Yeah, I mean, again, great points all around. And I think, we did see early in the season, a point I've made a bunch of times is that I think having Pascal Siakam play as well as he did sort of like mid season and beyond.
December 1st onwards, yeah.
Yes, exactly. It kind of allows everyone to fall into place. And I think a lot of people have this image burned in their head of Precious at the beginning of the year without Pascal. being overtasked, at points looking like, Reggie Evans, like around the basket, but yeah, I mean,
At least Reggie was grabbing boards. What was Precious doing?
yeah, fair enough. Yeah. Precious was mostly just getting blocked and having to like fix his hairband when it would fall off after a cool play. But yeah, Derick, let me go to you. Heading into, I guess, the beginning of like, fans and media and whatever, seeing the players a lot, because right now we don't know where they all are. I guess Rico Hines, but like, for the most part, we're not seeing them in Raptors uniforms, kind of like all together and starting to get an idea of what the team is like, the rotation's like, the vibe is like. What's your big questions?
Yeah, so I would say for me, to add to Imman's point about the offense, I'm particularly concerned about shooting on this team, because we were not a great shooting team. I think the NBA league average last season was about 35.5% from three. If you look at the 20 guys that we're bringing into training camp so far this year, only maybe 10 or less than that shot 35 or higher from three. And if you took away like the NCAA stats from the rookies and the two-way guys from that group, you probably only have maybe 6 guys. And of those 6 guys, 2 of them are like Thad and Bo Cruz. So, they're not going to see a ton of minutes. So realistically, you have 4 guys in Fred, Gary, Otto, and then, maybe probably like
OG
maybe, but he had a down year last year too. So I expect his numbers to be a bit better. So you have those 4 guys who can legitimately shoot the ball well from the 3, but they all kind of play with each other. So it's like, how is that going to work? And for a lot of teams, especially in the playoffs, like they just packed the paint on Pascal. Like, Pascal, we asked the world of him. He did incredible. He played well. He had a phenomenal bounce back year. I'm so proud of him. But we can't keep asking him to do that, because we asked Fred to do that too, and it ran him into the ground. And so we need shooting. We need depth. And I think we have some of it with Otto Porter Jr. That was a great addition. But without that, I don't see this team going as far. It really limits our ceiling as far as how good we could be, because if we can't spread the floor, teams are just going to pack the paint on Pascal, Precious, OG, like everyone that drives. There's going to be no lanes. And for Pascal, that means that if there's nobody for him to kick out to shoot to, he's just going to force up contested jump shots. And he's not like, it's not a successful recipe for them. So I think for me, if we can address shooting, and granted, we might already have, right? Like Malachi, I've been hearing has made some good improvements. I've been talking to people in Rexdale who work with Delano in the summertime. And a lot of them have said that Delano's been making strides as well with his jump shot as well. And you can see that at some of the America tournaments that he just played at, where he was one of the only guys, I think, to average 15 and 5 in the entire tournament. So I think there's hope there that the shooting will improve on our team, but we cannot go into the season again with another Utah Svi situation where Svi can't even hit more than 2 threes if his life depended on it. So
yeah. I mean, it's sort of like, we've been talking about it for a little while with this team, but it's not going to go away until it goes away. And it's fun to be this like Vision 6'9", this kind of like rare, oddball team, but you do have to make shots. And not just that, I think you have to hit enough shots that teams respect your gravity, right? A guy like Danny Green, we've seen him go cold, and teams they won't leave him from 3, right? Because he has a reputation as a 3-point shooter. And, some of our guys have that. But, if it's like, for instance, like you're saying, just Otto, and we've just added Otto, that's not like a massive change to every single lineup. It's not as if that's going to give us everything we need. And I feel like the Raptors, I think if you're a hardcore Raptors fan, at this point, you believe in our development system, and that, Nurse is a shot doctor and all this kind of stuff. And we can teach people to shoot the 3 well. And a guy like Kem, wasn't shooting it in Orlando, but he shoots it here. And a guy like Precious wasn't allowed to shoot it in Miami, but he shoots it here. However, I think the flip side of that is we're going to see a lot of zone, and we are going to go cold for massive stretches of the year. And a guy like Precious, back to Imman's, an initial point, is kind of like, we're going to see if he really can shoot the 3. Because I don't think teams are going to be like, oh man, he was hitting the 3, after the All-Star break last year. We got to fully respect him. I think it's going to be like, no, show us like, whatever, like 300 threes over the course of some odd time before we really respect you. Cause there are a couple guys that you can't let, pardon me, Fred or Gary shoot the three. I feel like Otto's earned it, and OG did have a down year, but I put him in the camp of sort of like, you don't really want to leave OG from three. But yeah, even Pascal, teams might opt to leave him in the playoffs. I've said it a bunch of times, but Doc Rivers definitely was part of the game plan to let Barnes shoot the three, right? So Barnes is another guy that I think the whole league's going to adjust to.
For sure.
Yeah, shooting. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, sorry. And to add to that point, and this may be, a bit of a wild take for some, but I honestly believe that with shooting and the ability to spread the floor on our team, Pascal could easily be in the MVP conversation next year, because he should have probably averaged about almost 10 assists a game last year if guys just hit their shots, because of the gravity that he creates when people, like, as much as people might want to troll him and hate on his spin move, like, it works.
It's a great move.
You know exactly what he's doing, except instead of Julius Randle, you're getting Pascal finishing at the basket, right? Like, you know exactly what the game plan is, and yet you can't stop it. And if you try to stop it, somebody's open. The only problem is they can't hit the open shot, right? And if they are open and they're streaky like Gary Trent is, you better hope he's hot or it's not going in, right? So I think if Pascal has the ability and to trust his teammates to know that, like, even when Fred's not on the floor, even when Gary's not on the floor, that a guy like Malachi could come in and give you some productive minutes where you can trust him running the point and trust that he's going to be able to knock down those open shots when he gets them. I think that will alleviate a lot of stress. It'll help Nick Nurse tweak some of the lineups and give guys a little bit more freedom to run the ball a little bit more and make some more plays, as opposed to having to rely so heavily on the starters to make something happen.
Yeah, great point on Pascal. And, I don't want to be too much of a homer here, but I think I'm with you on him being in those types of conversations. I feel like what we saw from him at the end of the year, he's going to be able to do that for the next 2-3 years. But do that also means, like, we've seen it even with a guy like Jokic, like, you do need willing shooters. You do need people who can hit those threes. And I mean, it's a long time ago. I think it might've been, I don't know if it was on a Bill Simmons podcast or what, but Pascal, when he was interviewed and he was talking about how when he's on offense, he feels like the person who's guarding him actually doesn't even count. Like, he can get past that person at will. And, that is, I feel like superstars get to that point. Yeah. We've seen it obviously with guys like James Harden, where the first guy sort of doesn't matter. And then where the help comes from is sort of the important part, like how a superstar manages that stuff. Obviously I love to slam Boston all the time, but I think, I've seen a bunch of that with Tatum, right? Where it's sort of like he's starting to read the defense, where it's kind of like, hey, the first guy does not matter to me, but when the second guy comes over, I can make sure it goes to, sort of like the Wayne Gretzky pass or the cross court pass or whatever. And we were seeing a lot of that from Pascal. But yeah, you need help and you need a good system and you need belief in all of your shooters to kind of make that as good as it can be. Okay, let's get silly a bit here. Maddie D.
I want to say that I'm with you guys.
Please.
So sorry. I want to say that I'm with you guys in terms of like Pascal and MVP conversation. To me, the one thing I've been super high on for Pascal specifically, seeing those Rico Hine runs. I can't watch all of them. I'm going to get too excited for the season. But what I started to look at is this is the first real offseason Pascal has had since the championship, like since the post-championship. And even that was like a truncated offseason because you won a championship. So this is going to be the first one. And what was really special about that second year prior to the bubble was Pascal's three-point shot. And what we saw from Pascal this year is he's a better player than he was in that season, despite being an all-star that year, despite making second team All-NBA. He was more consistent this past season. He showed additional counters. I mean, his pull-up game from 2 is up there with, any of the superstars in the league. And also, you guys were mentioning it, those doubles, right? He was getting doubles more than anybody else, and he makes really great reads and was finding guys. It's on everybody else to hit their shots. But to me specifically, if Pascal's pull-up can extend and he can add. It doesn't have to be, Kevin Durant pull up from 3, but if it can be higher than, whatever, it's probably in the 20s right now, if he can bring that to the 30s and actually take that consistently, he's a top 5 MVP candidate. Like, if he adds a pull-up 3 to his game, he has unlocked everything that you need from him. There's really no way to game plan for that kind of player who has the playmaking that he has, who has a defense that he has, who's developed all of these counters to his game, because he can spin right past anyone and no one can stop that. But if Pascal can add that final element to his game, he's up there with some of the upper echelon guys of the league. And I think it's hard for anyone to sort of counter that, Homer or not.
Well said, and agreed on all points. And the last little thing I'll add is that I feel like his defense is still elite. He has to sacrifice a little bit of his defense being such a major part of the offense. But, when you compare him to like the greatest players in the league, let's like leave Giannis out of this and Embiid. But like, I think his, Pascal is like really special D, right? So like he breaks up plays and his speed is just, it's capable of kind of disrupting things in a really important and integral winning way when it comes to, clutch moments. I feel like people always imagine the fadeaway and the 3-pointer when it comes to clutch plays, but, tipping a pass, breaking up a pass, if you've watched a lot of Warriors, you assume that, Curry is the clutch guy, but Draymond's pretty clutch too.
Raptor fans know it. We saw that block on Kyle Lowry in Game 5.
Yeah, exactly.
Ooh,
Exactly.
Daggers.
Okay, Maddie, let's bring you in. Let's get a little bit silly here. Sort of sticking with the training camp theme. Let's go to you first, Derick, on this one. This is just like whatever jokes you got here are welcome. But I always laugh when you see, okay, weird aside here, but I went with my partner to the American side. She's American. The American side of the Niagara Falls. It's kind of like a national park, and it was really beautiful. And the whole time I was there, I'm such a Raptors maniac that I was just thinking, like, I bet you Nick Nurse would do something where he'd organize like all of the Raptors to come to the falls, and there'd be this speech about like whatever, like water and hydropower and like how they need to work together or some shit. But yeah, anyways, it was just making me think about training camp and like how they kind of make these like team bonding trips, and like they're a mixture, I think, of like silly, but also when you think about a lot of these guys being so young, like pretty important, pretty cool potentially. So with that said, I want you to imagine you're in charge of planning one of these excursions. What's going down? What, where are you taking the Raptors? Like, what's the goal?
Okay, so I've been thinking about this, and I think I have the perfect idea. The problem is we'd have to start training camp like a couple weeks earlier.
Okay,
but what I would do is I'm taking the Raptors to the X. We're going to the CNE together as a team, because like I can already see it. I could see Nick Nurse giving guys a speech at the band shell, performing on his guitar. Maybe the Arkell show up. I don't know. Possibly
they would show up. I think
they will probably show up. And then I could see Scotty and Delano going to the food building and just trying all those weird foods out and being like, this, I want ketchup ice cream and I want mustard ice cream. I know it tastes like ass and it probably doesn't make sense, but somehow it works. Yeah. And that's just like our team. It's very weird but dynamic. And then you could get the I could see OG and Gary going into the arts and crafts building, trying to figure out which sort of like international rug they want to put in their house or something like that. Maybe buy a shiatsu massage or something like that. Sure. I could see that. Maybe check out a dog show. And then, I could see, maybe Fred and Pascal getting competitive with some of the games at ring toss or something like that. Like I could see all of this. And then you get the nice, you kind of cap the evening either on the Ferris wheel or the little ski lift ride. And then you kind of get the pairings, right? Like who would be on the ski lift together with who, right? Like obviously, you're going to probably have Pascal and Fred. And then I don't know who Nurse is with. Maybe he's with, Coach Griffin or something like that. Like there's a lot of options here. There's a lot of good team building and a lot of fun that I think could happen from this.
Okay, that's a wonderful answer. I love the idea of like capping the evening on this like romantic Ferris wheel. I'm also thinking like team photo on the medieval times steps.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Okay, that's fantastic. That's like a legit, really good idea. I the only thing is I feel like they would have to have a massive amount of security guards because if
Probably,
if they
yeah.
rolled up to the CNE, people would go insane.
Yeah,
It
and
would
not
have to be
only
like the day after Labor Day when like CNE is closed.
exactly,
So
yes,
it's just
exactly. Yeah,
them.
yeah. And also, like, I also feel like like from a safety standpoint, I don't know if the Raptors would want to risk that because like these guys are like 6'8", 6'9",
They all
And
200
get
those
pounds.
rides
injured.
come out of a
Like,
suitcase.
yeah, like do you want to put Scotty on the gondola and then his legs still hanging and touching the top of the food? I don't know, So
Yeah.
like it just
Yeah.
Yeah, it could get pretty dangerous for sure. Okay, that I mean that like I could like as you were saying that I was seeing that. So, great answer, Imman. You're same question. You're responsible for giving the Raptors an experience. What's the idea here?
I like the CNE one. I don't know if I can top that. I mean, I grew up really close to the CNE. So as a kid, I would like my sister and all of her friends worked there. So like I saw how quickly those rides went up. The NBA insurance is gonna have to like really kick in
Yes.
for those Ferris wheels that pop out of a suitcase. Allegedly CNE. I don't know how you guys actually build anything. But so my thing is first I'm a big brother fan. That's all I've been talking about if you follow me on Twitter. So I was like, how do we get people to vote each other out? And I was like, wait, no, that's probably going to create more rifts than it will like because you'll have your alliances, but you'll also have people who get mad at each other. So I was thinking of like an escape room that they're all stuck in,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Like no one gets a phone. You don't get to be distracted. There aren't any like outsiders there. You're stuck and have to work together. And I was like, could they like vote each other out every hour? Like if Precious is just being ridiculous and everybody's like, oh, we want him out because that's the big brother in me. But I decided that might not be great team building. So
Right.
So I'm gonna scrap that and say maybe there's like different rooms and you have to be competitive, like whoever can kind of solve it first. So they're like you put them in groups. Maybe you have your starting five working together in one space. Maybe you got the
like
bench
that.
mob working together in another one, and you try to see who can sort of win out in another way. They're thinking more so than just like physical beating each other out.
That's that's a fantastic idea, and I'll just out myself here. I used to work in the Casaloma escape games as an actor there, and it was always hilarious. And it's like a weird social experiment. And at one point, actually, they brought in like NHL prospects. It was weird because like I was like the actor, and I'm like, you have to get to the top of the tower or whatever, and these like all these like 18-year-olds who are like from Sweden and Finland and stuff, like who are like super buff and taller than me. I was like, what's going on? Well, like, what's this group about? And then we found out who they were, but they were hyper competitive and they actually were good at the escape games, even with some of the language barriers, because they're just like, it was a like a different arena for them to be competitive. And the biggest thing is communication in those things. So escape games is a wonderful idea, and I love the idea of separating them. Like, just like give me a camera of Scotty playing an escape game, and it would be glorious. Also, people always break stuff. I can't see the Raptors not just like, I mean,
like this must be a clue.
Yes.
No, it's just a door handle. Stop pulling on it.
Yeah, 100%. Like, and they're also big and strong that I feel like even just by accident, like stuff would break. These are great. Maddie, like I feel like the pressure's on. I can already tell you my answer is not going to live up to the first two. But Maddie, what's your excursion idea?
Well, it's funny that you open this up talking about Niagara Falls. There is a little bit of Niagara Falls in my thing, but we'll get to that.
Okay.
What I wanted to start with is you remember how LeBron was big into the banana boating and stuff years ago.
Yes.
I want like a custom team, like huge one that can fit the whole team. And they do a Lake Ontario tour and they're like going along the shores. They're seeing fans. They're stopping in different towns and stuff for restaurants and different excursion stuff. They're making their way around Lake Ontario, but they've got another part of this journey that nobody knows. And they're headed to Niagara Falls. They're going to the Niagara River. And as they get closer to Niagara Falls, They're still got the banana boat. they all stand on each other's shoulders to get the banana boat over the falls.
Sure.
And they continue to Lake Erie. All right, because that's where it's going. Now, what they do at Lake Erie, they ditch the banana boat, and we've talked about it before. Lake Erie's pretty shallow. I think the only person that'll have a problem with that lake is probably Fred. He's under 6 feet, so he might need to wear a life jacket. Everyone else can walk it, no problem. And they're going to walk that Lake Erie to Cleveland. They're going to stand out in Lake Erie, and it's going to turn into a bit more of like a Jordan Peele thing. It's going to require a lot of commitment on the players' part, but we're just going to kind of show Cleveland that we're not afraid of the trades they've made or the team that they have. And we're just going to, they're all going to be standing in Lake Erie looking very like solemn and like serious. And then they'll just turn around and they'll leave. That'll be their point. So that's
wow. There's a lot to unpack there, man. Honestly, a lot to. First of all, Imman was talking about insurance. I think we'll need some insurance there because I think the Raptors all getting injured in Lake Erie is not a good story.
On each other's shoulders at Niagara Falls, like that's
pretty dangerous too. That's pretty dangerous. I also love the idea that you threw in some intimidation. Like we're gonna intimidate Cleveland, like that's our group excursion. we're gonna like try to pick a fight with Evan Mobley. That's really good. Okay, mine is like I'm torn between a couple ideas, but I think I want to bring it back to sort of like trying a different sport. I love seeing athletes sort of like try to prove themselves in a different sport. So mine is sort of there's a similar theme to yours, Matt, in that it's like showing them that they're better than something. And in this case, I would start like kind of casually by bringing them to the Hockey Hall of Fame. And I think they might be a little bit bored and messing around and like just like checking things out. But it would end in the Hall of Fame with a speech, and all the Raptors would be shown that the Raptors are now a more valuable team to Canada than the Leafs. So I would basically tell them like, listen, this is your town now. So first things first, we're going to prove that, and we're going to put you all on skates, and we're going to listen, we have enough money. We can use Maple Leafs, all the equipment and everything. Probably some of the size is going to be an issue, and insurance is going to be a major issue here. But just play a bunch of hockey. Like, I guess, they'd probably fall and like hurt themselves, but I bet they'd all catch on real quick and, even do some like hockey fights and stuff and basically just make a mockery of the game of hockey for fun and kind of tell them like, this is your town now. And, this is what we're going to do. We're going to mess around and play some hockey.
Why don't they just go to the Hockey Hall of Fame and trash it? Just
sure. Yeah. You know what? It's an escape game. How do you get out of here? You just break the Stanley Cup over your knee. That's better. Cut out the whole shitty part of my story. Just tell these guys you can trash this place. Okay? give them all a sledgehammer. Okay, this is good. We got some excursion ideas. I hope MLSE is listening. And they'll be pretty frustrated at my answer, I think. I think that's it for the pod. Unless anyone else has any good points. It was a really, really good episode. I appreciate having you both. Let me go to you first. Derick. Is there anything you want to plug? Is there anything you want to say to the listeners?
I mean, I don't have anything major to plug other than to say, support women in sports, support the WNBA, support Dishes and Dimes. I think that there's a phenomenal amount of talented people out there that cover this game, and it's not men. We should support them and to take in their products. So definitely check that out. And of course, as always, support your public broadcaster.
Hell yeah. Well said. Imman, let me go to you. I mean, people should know where you are, but just in case they don't, where can they find you? What do you want to plug? What do you want to say?
It's hard to follow up what Derick just said. I echo all of his sentiments. Check me out on Dishes and Dimes. We'll be coming back for a new season. Also, Yahoo Sports Canada. Also, Basketball News. Be sort of in more places, coming out with video and written content. So please check that out. And on Twitter, at Imman Adan, if _Adan. I don't even know my name. It was no name for a long time and I kind of miss it. But yeah, that's everything.
I love the last little part where you've made that Twitter name and you're like, oh, I miss my old Twitter name.
I miss it.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you both so much. This was a great episode. And again, our listenership has really been growing over the past little while. So thanks to everyone who's been listening and supporting. And yeah, we'll see you next week. Maddie, if you feel like we're done, we're good to go. Please just give me those words I love so much. Okay.
Listen to full episodes of the Confederacy of Dunks only on the Rapcast.